People lead the politicians. The politicians just figure out what it is the people are leading them to, and then they pretend they got there first. It doesn't happen that way. In the generation of my children, they are striving for change in a personal way. And until recently, with the election of Barack Obama, they were not a political generation. They were a generation that believed they could change their communities by their personal action and by getting together with others who had the same goals. And in fact, the internet has been an incredibly powerful tool for that. I personally think the internet is the most important tool for democracy and tool for self-empowerment since Gutenberg invented the printing press 500 years ago. All institutions, whether the right, the left, whether they're academic or corporate or governmental, tend to be conservative with a small c. That is, they tend to want to continue their own life and continue in their own direction. They have what we would call in physics inertia. And so, and what I like to do is stir up institutions and create ways to change inside an institution. It's a difficult thing to do because the older and bigger the institution is, the harder it is to change. So as a young person, your job is to be impatient as possible and demand the change immediately, because that's what young people do in our society, and we want you to do that. My job as an older person is to figure out how much change we can have before the older people leave. And sometimes the older people do have to leave. If you have a choice between renewing the party inside the party and renewing the party outside the party, if you can find a way to do it inside the party, it'll be better. Because what usually happens when you do it outside the party is you have to lose some elections before you make the change. So when you lose the election, the right wing is running the place. And every day the right wing runs anything is a day we're stepping backwards as human beings. If I may make a very strong statement. Now, I know you don't have primaries here, but you can figure out an Austrian equivalent of being able to say, if you do this, we're not with you anymore. Or we're not going to be with you in this case, in this particular state. And now you have to decide what the threshold for that is. But you do not have to, and I discourage this as a tactic that you're going to use every day, because if you do, you'll destroy the party and something much worse will come along. But there are going to be some things that you can't cross. Everybody has lines they can't cross. And when your party crosses the line, you don't have to be with them. And if you're public about it, sometimes the party will think about doing something different. There are institutions which do research. The best one is Center for American Progress. They're always doing research and coming out with position papers and so forth and so on. They're a general center-left organization. They're not related to the Democratic Party, although, of course, lots of people go back and forth. So there's Huffington Post. There's the Daily Kos. None of these are exactly attached to the Democratic Party, and sometimes they'll attack the Democratic Party, which I think is fine. But that's all part of the infrastructure that it takes to run something. Campaigns are never about the last 3 months. They're usually about the last 3 years. And if you want to win a campaign, you have to organize for 3 years, not just organize for 3 months. And having these permanent institutions are very, very important, a part of that. Now, of course, we do send emails out all the time to people, but it's this stuff that's around the Democratic Party, not in it. That's the infrastructure that begins to change people's mind. I think I'm very tempted when the right wing says something about immigrants and what's your position, or the newspapers, what's your position? I think I'd say, you know, you guys are always talking about immigrants. How come you never talk about jobs? Because I'm going to create jobs, and you're not doing anything to create jobs, and I'm sick and tired of people who talk about somebody else's problems. You've done nothing about our problems. That's called the pivot. Clinton was the best at it. Governor, should same-sex people be allowed to get married? Well, that's a very interesting issue, but I'm here to talk about jobs and what George Bush isn't doing anything about it. Governor, what about abortion? Yeah, very interesting topic. Let's talk about jobs, because we need more jobs here in the United States. Well, so in some ways, one of the solutions to talking about immigration is don't let them set the agenda. That we always do this on the left. We're too damn honest. We think we have to answer the question. You don't ever have to answer the question. You should answer the question that they should have asked you, not the one they did ask you. And the one they should have asked you is the one you like. We're going to talk about what we want to talk about. We're going to talk about jobs, fixing the healthcare system, and balancing the budget. And you can't trust the right wing to balance the budget because all they care about is the banks. They don't care about you. Now tell me that's not going to sell in Austria, because I think it will. It sure as hell is going to sell in the United States. Change the subject. You have to have a reasonable answer, but you don't have to have the debate about their turf. You have the debate about what we think we want to talk about, and make them talk about what you want to talk about. And be relentless. Don't let anybody else set the agenda ever. You don't have to respond to them. We're going to lead this country. They're not going to lead it anymore when we get through with them. So we're going to talk about what we're going to do when we lead, not what they haven't done because they've been a wreck for the last however many years they've been in power. Sorry to get so excited.